Courage to Heal is such a pulling, such an emotional, such a captivating and an inspiring story of Dr. Sidney Garfield. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the review of the novel Courage to Heal by Paul Bernstein, MD. This is such an amazing read for me. It is quite enthralling, it is very compelling, it is quite sad in some certain aspect, and I find it very inspiring actually, looking at the characterization, looking at the future that the protagonist, Dr. Sidney Garfield, actually possessed in the story, really made for an interesting discussion. It really made for an interesting read. This is my first time actually getting to know about the story of Dr. Sidney Garfield, and I want to commend the author Paul Bernstein for conveying the story of Sidney in an enthralling, in a captivating, and in a way that I find it extremely interesting. This book, Courage to Heal, actually details the real life story of the young surgeon, Dr. Sidney Garfield. The story touched on his family background, it touched on his situation, touched on his career as a medical doctor, and the challenges encountered along the line, the obstacles he needs to overcome and all of that. I would love to say that I love the introduction, that towards a prologue section, whereby the author, Paul Bernstein, pulled us into the story by telling us what killed Sidney's mother. The prologue section talks about the death of Sidney's mother because his father could not afford to pay the doctor, that's Dr. Foster. And as such, instead of Dr. Foster to treat her, I could even remember reading a section that said, please treat her, I will surely pay you. But the doctor replied said, no, there is this charity hospital. You may want to take her there. This is what actually Sidney had. Then, Sidney is very young, and when the mother was sick, the father told him, Sidney, go to your room because they're trying to hide it from him. They don't want him to know. But then eventually, Sidney could hear the conversation downstairs, and his mother died because the father couldn't afford Dr. Foster's bill of treating Sidney's mother. And actually, this is where the grief come in. This is also where the grief has been accompanied with passion. And that's how Sidney got his own passion of wanting to become a medical doctor. Now, I need to say that I love the way Paul Bernstein wrote the novel. He wrote the novel in a way whereby a section talks about something that happened in so-so year and so-so city at so-so time. And another section will talk about a different thing entirely, a different city, a different year, all of that. And the book is actually made up of 4 sections as such. So from here to move into the other section, this is a section whereby Sidney eventually went to school and became a medical doctor. Now, I want to say that Sidney became a medical doctor because of what happened to her mother. So for me, I remember reading a section whereby Sidney worked in Caton's hospital, that's the Dean. This particular day, they were operating on a particular patient, and the patient was going to die. The patient is on the verge of death. So he cut a section of his own vein and told one of the doctors that, fill the syringe with my blood while the operation was going on. Something that is actually rare, and I'm quite excited that Paul Bernstein could detail the story of Sidney Garfield in an amazing way as this. So he told the other doctor that they filled the syringe with his own blood, and that's how they were able to transfuse the blood to the patient who is on the verge of death. While the whole act was going on, the doctor was like, how are we going to transfer your blood? We don't even know your blood group. And Sidney was like, no, I know my blood group. I am whole. I'm a universal donor. Just go ahead and do what I asked you to do. So eventually, the patient survived it, but this backfired on Sidney. Sidney was called to Caton's hospital, and as I told him that you're not following medical procedure, how would you transfuse blood from your body to that of a patient? So I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to help the patient. I'm trying to make sure that he didn't die, and I know my blood group. I'm a universal donor. I'm just trying to help. So I wouldn't say that Sidney was being obstinate, and I wouldn't say that he was full of himself. I wouldn't say that. But then there is this, I would love to say that it's a blend, I would say, of being sophisticated and a blend of being too passionate about saving the life of people over the other way around. So this is how, when Keaton see that, Sydney was being obstinate, was like, don't worry, I'm gonna give you your license, but you have to leave my hospital today. So that's how Sydney left Keaton's hospital. So Garfield from here took it upon himself that he's gonna build his own hospital. And so he went to the desert, started building his own hospital. Though you don't have too much money, but it was like, the father asked him, how do you think you're gonna survive with this? Do you think this is something you can do? Garfield was very passionate, it was unmovable, it was not stopping. Despite all the discouragement coming to him, it was like, this is what I want to do. I need to build my hospital. I love Sydney's father's contribution to this. He had went to borrow loan just so Sydney can build a hospital, can buy the equipment required and all of that. And he borrowed loan and put his own business as a collateral in the bank. So he got to the point whereby the banks were threatening his father. This part reached very emotional. I'm very sad to know about this. So at each point actually, Sydney will keep encouraging his father that, don't worry, Dad, I'm gonna get the money, I'm trying to get in business with this person, this and that. So at this point actually, Sydney was a bit confused because he did not want to go into business, into partnership with the likes of Chandler, because they came and told him that, come together, let's form a group, come and join us. So it was very pulling, this part is very emotional. And here I love to introduce character like Judy. Judy happened to be a nurse that works with Sydney alongside. But then, Judy loves Sydney. Also, Sydney loves Judy. But I think he hadn't mentioned it to her that, he loves her and all of that. So eventually, I'm actually very sad to know about the death of Sydney's father. And he was taken to Keaton's hospital. And to my own perception, I kind of think that Sydney's father died because of maybe hypertension or the blood pressure he had after the overthinking and thinking again of Sydney's hospital and he's going to pay back the loan and his business going into naught and stuff like that. That's just my own perception. But then I was quite sad to know about the death of Sydney's father. I really felt sorry for him, because I kind of think that considering all the things he's done for Sydney, considering all of the sacrifices, considering all of the advice, considering his support and all of that, he should have at least wait to eat the fruit of his labor. But then it's quite very sad to know about his death. I wouldn't love to give much away, just in an attempt to keep this review spoiler free. But then something exceptional happened. At some point, the hospital that Sydney is trying to build in the desert got some obstacles, a bit of challenges, and then something happened. A man in the name of Erin Kesa was rushed down to the hospital because him and another person had just jumped off the train. So by then they were going to build the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and Sydney found this opportunity to be able to at least make money from its medical career. So he was able to come up with a concept of a subscription that would allow all the workers to be in health, because then there was an outbreak of a particular disease and all the workers were getting sick one after the other. So from here Sydney was able to pick it up and they started treating the workers and all of that. But then something exceptional happened at this point that Sydney's career, at this point that his perception, at this point that his idea of founding the Erin Caser's Permanent Hospital and for founding the group Association of Medical Directors that he wanted to do. At each point, it feels a bit of challenges, it feels a bit of heartaches. Each point presents an entirely different hostile person trying to stop it. People like the like of Dr. Fosa. And I want to say that, I don't want to give too much away in my review, just an attempt to keep it spoiler free. But then when I reached to the point whereby Sydney's medical license was going to be revoked in I think it's a court, that part treats very cynically. I was like, oh my God, that's not going to happen. So I was quite shocked to know that a particular woman right there was like, I've got 200 letters signed by the patient that Dr. Sydney had treated in time past, demanding that his medical license not been revoked, demanding that he should get his medical license. So this part is very amazing, and at each point, the armor tried to stop him, just like it's written in the front cover. The state filed false charges against him, and Sydney Garfield changed medicine forever. I wouldn't love to give much away in an attempt to keep this review spoiler free, but then I love to say that I particularly love the characterization. This novel is written by an entirely different person, not by Sydney Garfield himself, and to have the story in this manner, the storytelling techniques, the writing style, the description of certain scenes, and the use of language, the conversation that exists between different doctors really made for an interesting read. It's read in a way that it maybe paints image in my head as if I'm watching a movie. And reading the book actually reminded me of the Grey's Anatomy movie. I'm not sure if there's anyone who had watched that, but I watched that many years ago when I was in high school. I think that's many years ago. So I really love that. And the book reads like that. I love the conversation that exists between the doctors, one doctor talking about another. And I want to say that it's very amazing. It's very educative as well. It will be good for medical students. It will also be good for everybody, irrespective of your career, irrespective of your work, because I kind of find it very amazing. It's very scientific and it's read medically in a way that, the conversation that exists between the doctors when performing the surgery. And I want to say that I particularly love this writing style because Paul Bernstein really paints the image in an amazing manner. And like someone who had some hospital experience in time past, I could relate to some things mentioned in the book, and I could relate and I agree with Sidney Garfield's mode of treating patients, unlike the fee-for-service, because not everybody actually can afford to pay for medical bills when they get sick. So, Sidney Garfield was of the opinion that why don't we create a plan that will enable everybody to give a kind of a subscription that will cover them whenever they get sick. So that sounds very amazing. And look at the scenarios that exist between some patients here. They're actually quite much. We have some surgery that were performed for the abdomen. We have other surgery that was performed for the kidney. The other ones actually that were performed for different certain health issues. And I remember reading a story of a particular twins whereby one was sick and the other was not sick. They had to transfuse blood from the one that is not sick to the other one that was sick, and the sick one got healed. And from there I could learn from the conversation actually that the blood of the one that is not sick contains some antibiotics or something like that. It's actually an interesting novel. It's actually an interesting read. One that I typically recommend for people who are medical students. One that I typically recommend for everybody entirely. Why do I recommend it for everybody? I recommend it for everybody because of the fact that there's a bit of motivation contained in the novel. There's a bit of an inspiring story. The story of Sidney Garfield itself is quite inspiring. Just like we've heard of people like Ben Carlson and some other medical doctors who have made impact in the world. So I consider the story of Sidney Garfield very pulling. Why do I find it very pulling? Because despite the fact that it looks as if nothing is going to work, despite the fact that he had quite a lot of enemies, despite the fact that he had foes who are standing against his idea, he kept moving on. He keeps surmounting strength and he keeps going undefeatable. He's passionate, he's persevering, and very pulling. When he was building his hospital in the desert, he had a saving of $2,500, and from there was able to gather some more money, borrow loans to buy X-ray machine, to get this, to put the hospital in place, and to even have an hospital with an AC running, because he learned that he's not going to suffocate his patient, while on the other way around, a doctor will sit there in his office receiving AC. There's actually a bit of interesting stuff there. Paul Bernstein's writing style is quite poetic, it's quite descriptive, and I find it a bit hilarious because at some point, there's some conversation that exists between one or two characters. They're very hilarious. I love characters in the name of Judy. I love characters in the name of Sidney Garfield himself. I love character in the name of Sidney's father and Sidney's mother. I love character in the name of Chandler, though in some aspect I kind of dislike him because of the thing that exists between him and Sidney. I love characters in the name of Henry Kaiser. Oh, I felt so sad knowing that he died towards some point. It's very sad. I hate people like the like of the Dean, that's skating, and also hate Dr. Foster. Dr. Foster was the reason why Sidney's mother died, because the father couldn't afford the bill. And Dr. Foster was the same person that stood up, did not want Sidney Garfield to receive his medical license, wanting it to be revoked. But eventually, I just wanted to check out what happened eventually, because I wouldn't love to give everything away. And I always attempt to keep my reviews spoiler free. Though to some point, I feel triggered to, share story beyond description. But then I wouldn't love to give this away. So yeah, if you'd love to get a copy of Courage to Heal, a novel by Paul Bernstein, I left a link in the description part of this review for you to get a copy directly on Amazon. And if you watch this video to this point and you're yet to click on the subscribe button, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button over there, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can get notified anytime I release new videos. Yeah, this is an amazing novel. It's quite brilliant, it's lovely, it's well written, it's illustrative, it's didactic, it's inspiring, it's pulling, it's sad, it's a story of love, it's a story of loss, and I can't describe it enough. I'm just short of more words to describe it. Yeah, so this is my thought and my review of Courage to Heal, a novel by Paul Bernstein. See you in my next video. Goodbye.